Now welcome to another Let's Talk Some Star Wars, where this time we will be taking a look at and discussing the results of the poll that asked you, what did you think of the fourth and final story arc of Andor Season 2? I will also then be reading and responding to some of the comments left on the poll, but before we can get to that, let's take a look at those results, where we will see that 87% of people who voted said they were fantastic episodes, 9% said they were pretty good, 2% said they were okay or average or kind of mid, and then a final 2% said they were pretty bad. And these results are obviously very impressive, though it should be noted last week's story arc did do a little bit better. There were 2% of people more who thought they were fantastic and 2% less who thought they were pretty good, so basically we had a bit of a swap there. There were some people who thought last week was a little bit better, which I guess, maybe, I don't know. They're so hard to compare because they are very different in what they're trying to do or pull off. I feel like last week was kind of the culmination episode of just everything. It was the Gorman massacre, it's Mon Mothma leaving the Senate, it's all these things happening, and this is kind of what happens after that. This is kind of the fallout or repercussions and ending episode or segue into Rogue One. They're doing different things, and they both do them extremely well, and apparently a few people, thought last week was just better, which, again, I guess, I don't know, very hard to compare them. But anyway, I am just going to move right to the comments. Once again, there were a ton of them, which is why I will again say thank you to everybody who votes, comments, or watches these or any of my videos across the two channels, as I have to say thank you, a big thank you to those who support the channel on Patreon and make my Discord server the best place on the internet, if I may say so. The best place on the internet to talk some Star Wars. We had a great conversation about Andor this past Thursday night. We do a voice chat every Thursday night, so if you literally want to talk Star Wars with me, you can become a Patreon and join us there. But even if you don't, I am happy to read your comments here or to do some lightning response videos. And so, getting to the top rated comment on this poll, which is of course where we always start, and it came to us from Plush Bro, who said, turns Rogue One from a solid spin-off story into an incredible series finale. Makes me wish it was made after Andor. And I do agree, having watched Rogue One again the other night after the finale of Andor, I will say, even though I think Rogue One is by far the best of the Disney Star Wars films, not that it has a ton of competition necessarily, but as someone who thought it was a good movie already, a really good movie, it is even better now. I remember all those years ago people asking, why are we getting a Cassian Andor backstory? And I think it was a fair question at the time, don't get me wrong. I don't know that anybody was really asking for his backstory after this movie, because it's like, yeah, he's just kind of a generic character, right? He does his thing, he dies at the end, no big deal. But now when you watch that film, and I kind of agree, kind of disagree about wishing it had been made after Rogue One, or coming out after, maybe. Like we were going to get a movie next summer. Well, we are getting a movie next summer, but if we were going to get Rogue One, say, next summer, and it was being made right now, or having already been made, whatever, I don't know if Andor feels quite the same not knowing the fate of Cassian. I think already knowing Rogue One, already knowing how his story ends, and again, I know people always say, who cares about this character because we know he dies, but that is one of the things that really works, especially here at the end, and we learn that he has a destiny. The Force healer tells him he has a destiny, and we, of course, know what that destiny is. I don't know, I actually think that us knowing the end of his story makes it better. This is one of those times where a prequel story actually works, where knowing where we're going, exactly how this character is going to die, somehow makes the story we are getting back then, or currently, makes Andor, I should just say, it makes it better, I think. And in turn, Rogue One also is better. I think it just kind of works both ways, both make each other better. It's pretty impressive all around. Alright, and moving on now, we have a comment here from Zachary Perrin, who said, Andor was an absolute masterpiece. I loved how it so easily flows right into Rogue One. I also love how Will, his girl, Val, Bix, and Clea actually survived and now have a life in the Star Wars universe. It puts so much more weight into Andor's death in Rogue One, knowing that he was part of each of their survival, and also he has a child floating around out there. Very poetic. And I was actually surprised at how many characters lived, and not in a bad way where I'm like, oh god, why did they all have to live? This doesn't make sense, I wish they had died, or something strange like that. I'm glad more of them lived than I expected. I think it is a kind of a happy ending. I think that montage at the end is just beautifully done, where we get to see these snippets of each of these characters' lives, and we can kind of infer or kind of imagine or kind of make up where they go next. We can envision a future for them, or we can just assume maybe they die in the next battle. I like, again, how we can just kind of fill in the blanks, even though something tells me that, yes, we will get some books, we will get some comics, these characters are going to be used again. And honestly, I'm not sure if I really want to see that. As much as I want to see more from these characters, as much as I would just take mundane stories about these characters because I'm so vested in them, I don't know that we explicitly need to be told exactly what happens to them next. I think the way the show ended is just perfect. And there's something to be said about not trying to fill in every second of every day of these characters' lives and just letting them exist out in the universe for us to imagine what their life turned into. I don't know that we need the Son of Cassian story where he becomes a Jedi and goes and joins Luke's Jedi Order and dies to Kylo Ren. I don't think we need anything like that. Let's just assume that Cassian's son, whatever his name is, we don't even know that. Let's just assume he grows up on Minarao, has a nice life. The Empire is, of course, destroyed in a few years, so that might just be possible. And then lives there peacefully until the First Order. Forget it. Alright, let's move on to this comment now from KCJP, who said, "I'm stunned. This is the best Star Wars I have ever watched. The OT will always live in my heart as I saw the original Star Wars at 14, and it and Empire basically changed the focus of my life. But this is the best written, acted, directed, everything Star Wars I've ever seen, and you can't change my mind." And I don't know that I want to change your mind. I don't know that I disagree with you that if you want to break it down into the technical aspects, if you will, that this isn't the best thing Star Wars ever, which I know that might ruffle some feathers or anger people. I'm not saying this is suddenly better than A New Hope and better than this or that. I don't think we necessarily need to compare them. There are 40 years, 45, 47 years separating them, depending on what films and what you're comparing them to. So things have changed, things are different, we expect kind of different things from stories. One's a movie, one's a series, or some of them are movies, one's a series, you know what I'm saying? I don't necessarily want to directly compare them and say which one is better or which one is the best, but again, if you're kind of breaking it down into the technical categories, yes, the writing is perfect, the acting is on point, it is directed well, everything looks great, the score, I don't know, maybe John Williams gets the nod there, but the score is excellent. If I look at the show as critically as possible, I don't know that I can poke any holes in it. I don't know that there are any real major noticeable flaws in it anywhere. Sure, if you want to get really nitpicky, you can find things that could have been better or that maybe don't work extremely well, I guess. But yeah, overall, this might just be the best thing ever created in the Star Wars universe from a certain point of view. Okay, we now move on to this comment from Jacois. I think I'm saying that one right. But anyway, they said, "Dedra coming to Luthen's shop blew my mind. I was so gosh darn excited. A vintage Starpath unit, and she clunks it down on the table. Perfection." And that was such a fantastic scene. There are so many fantastic scenes, don't get me wrong, but the whole time you're like, what exactly is going on here? Does Dedra not know why is she here and why is she talking so friendly to him? Why is she just not arresting him? And Luthen is just playing along because I guess there's a hope in him somewhere that he can weasel his way out of this, that Dedra hasn't figured it all out, even though, come on, she has. And then the Starpath unit gets plunked down, and the whole conversation changes because, obviously, she knows, and Luthen knows she knows. And I love that she has just come here to gloat. She came here to rub it in his face that I found you, I captured you, I have defeated your rebellion. And Luthen's answer, his response is perfect. He's like, the rebellion is so far beyond me. It's out there in the galaxy. You have a whole galaxy now of people to hate the way you have hated me for wanting it to be free of your tyranny. Again, beautiful scene, just one of many beautiful scenes, not only in this story arc, but the whole season and the whole series. And now on to this comment from Malik Carson, who said, "Dedra ending up in Narkana for all her efforts was shockingly perfect. There is no winning with the Empire, regardless if you're against them, with them, or ignoring them." Very well said, and I agree. If you ignore the Empire, you're probably going to be trounced by them. If you fight the Empire, good chance you're going to die in the process. And if you try to work for them, well, you might end up like Dedra, where you tried your damnedest and maybe you overstepped your bounds a little bit, you got a little overzealous, and they put you in your place. Or maybe you end up like Partagas, who gave his, well, we don't know how many years he's been with the Empire necessarily. I would imagine he was probably with Republic intelligence before this. But he's almost certainly given his last 20 years to the Empire. He has probably done a lot of, from their point of view, done a lot of good for them. He seems like a rather competent individual here, like he ran his section of the ISB or department of the ISB rather well. And in the end, he has a bad day or two. Some of his subordinates get out of line and may be rebels, and then he has one bad operation. And what is the thanks he gets for all his years of service? He gets to essentially fall on his own sword. Next up here, we have a comment from Puppetry, who said, people lament that we'll never get a Star Wars show as good as Andor, but I think we have to put it into perspective. It is rare for any media to produce anything as densely written, technically perfect, and stunningly creative as this show, Star Wars or not. This isn't just rarefied air for Star Wars, Andor is rarefied air for media in general. Most of prestige TV has nowhere near the budget and narrative sprawl of the show, and most of the high-budget films or TV are constrained by studio notes and conceits. This show managed to strike at the perfect moment in the streaming boom to combine a mega budget with masterful craftspeople and some stunningly sophisticated writing. Thank you, Tony Gilroy and Andor team. I don't know if the galaxy was watching, but all of us who did are forever grateful. And yeah, this is easily one of the greatest shows I have ever seen, one of the greatest pieces of entertainment I have ever seen, and I do not say that because it is Star Wars. I say that because it is written and crafted so brilliantly. The fact that it is Star Wars, the fact that it is good Star Wars, that it fits into Star Wars, that it makes sense for Star Wars, is kind of a really great bonus. And I know we always talk about, well, you could take the Star Wars out of it and it doesn't work as well, but it does rely on it being Star Wars, right? It does use the Empire, it does use the Rebellion, it brings in Destiny and the Force. It does use those tools, it doesn't ignore them. It just doesn't use them in such a flashy way as we oftentimes see them used in, so in your face with lightsabers and Jedi and Sith, which you can like, you can not like, you can want to have that sort of stuff in your Star Wars more overtly. That's fine. But in all reality, it wouldn't be that easy to just remove the Star Wars, because yes, it does use the themes, it does use the characters, it does use a lot of the things that make Star Wars, it just doesn't use them again in the biggest and boldest way imaginable, which is what the films and other things usually try to do, for better or worse sometimes. Alright, and now for one final comment, and it comes to us from MRDLT00, who said, this show needed to be so much longer than 2 small seasons, man. And to that, I agree and disagree, because, yeah, getting 5 seasons would have been incredible. Even getting 3 seasons would have been kind of cool. But I don't want to in any way complain about what Season 2 is. I don't want to say, oh man, Season 2 is fantastic, but, it would have been better if it was 5. We don't technically know that. Maybe if you draw out the story too much, it starts to, lose some of its appeal. Now, I'm not saying I think that's going to happen, but it's possible. It's possible if it goes 5 seasons, it just kind of lingers a bit too long, gets a bit stagnant at times, and does maybe not live up to what we just saw with this second season. I don't know, and we will never know. And I get what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you or saying I wouldn't have wanted more. Yes, I think if you give me the option right here and right now, or if you can erase Season 2 from my mind because it was so damn good. But if you had asked me before Season 2, do I want 5 seasons or do I just want this to be the final one? I would say, yeah, give me the 5 seasons. But it turned out so well that now after the fact, I'm like, I just don't know that you could have made the show 5 seasons and captured the same thing you just did with this 1 season. I don't know. Again, we'll never know. And I understand wanting more. I want more, but I'm so happy with what we got. It is so nice to just love some Star Wars again, to just not have any complaints whatsoever. None that really matter anyway. And to just enjoy what was given to us. And as so many people said in their comments, you have to say thank you to Tony Gilroy. You have to say thank you to those at Lucasfilm and Disney who allowed this or helped make this happen. You have to give credit to the writers, the actors, to everybody who was involved in the creation of the show. Thank you to all of them. Thank you for some really damn good Star Wars. Alright, well that is going to be all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you thought of these final 3 episodes of Andor Season 2, or tell me what you thought or how you would respond to some of these questions. Would you want more seasons of Andor even knowing how good the second one was? Do you think the show is better than the original trilogy in terms of technical aspects? And do you think we'll ever see anything this good out of Star Wars again? Whatever you think about any or all of it, leave a comment below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.